With LSU's defense struggling against running quarterbacks, Diego Pavia should have a big game this Saturday.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, as Vandy gets ready for LSU, a few things really stand out for the Tigers. For LSU, well, I noticed that they moved the ball really well between the 20s, but it seems like their drives stall out a bit as they get closer to the red zone and they have to settle for field goals and such. All right, but also Garrett Nussmeier, I noticed when he gets a little pressure, when he gets flushed, he gets a little careless with the football, so that could play into Vandy's advantage as well. But I noticed a trend with LSU's defense versus the run. They struggle a bit versus run, especially the quarterback run. So what that means is Diego Pavia should have a big day running the football. Okay, and I definitely watched the LSU Alabama game. I watched bits and pieces of the Florida game, checked out the highlights again just to kind of double check what I saw. I was kind of in and out of that game, but from what I did see, they struggled against the run. And DJ Lagway is a really good passer, and LSU just was kind of discombobulated with that. Also, Texas A&M when they made the switch is about when I came over to that game, and they had just made the switch to Marcel Reed, and boom, he runs. I mean, it seems like he's running up and down the field. I had a FanDuel bet with that. I had a LSU was part of a parlay, and guess who messed up my parlay? It was an 8-legger that would have paid out $200. Guess who ruined it? Yeah, that's right, LSU, because they decided they couldn't tackle Marcel Reed, and South Carolina handled him just perfectly. So that's a bit of a red flag when you look at this defense. And LSU was atrocious on defense last year. So there was only one direction for them to go, and that was up. They've improved, but I don't think they've improved significantly enough. And I think, honestly, with the last 3 games in a row that they've lost and that they've looked so poorly, that there's some concern that Brian Kelly also, his seat's warming up rather quickly, right? And a loss to Vanderbilt would only make that seat red hot, if not burn him right on out of there. But for Vanderbilt, obviously, their identity is Diego Pavia and Cedric Alexander in the run game, the option run game, and getting that going. So that is obviously their identity. And I think this fits right into it. I think this is the reason why I love Vanderbilt in this matchup. We're living in a bizarre world. Everything that I've said about Vanderbilt this year has been like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's absolutely true. This is the next thing, right? You go into Death Valley, and I love this matchup because what Vandy does best is what LSU's defense does worst, defending a running quarterback. Now, as I was watching, okay, I made some notes. All right, Jalen Milroe. Now, I understand that Jalen Milroe runs like a deer, and he hits a running lane and just boom, he's gone, and he's big and tall and strong and fast and explosive. But I think people are understating what Diego Pavia has, and I think the last couple of weeks he's been hobbled a bit, so he hasn't been quite as fast. But I mean, that guy can make some long runs too. And LSU's defense, when they were giving up these big runs, it's not like Jalen Milroe broke a few tackles or beat somebody to the edge and just kept on going up the sidelines. He was running right down Broadway. He was running right through the A-gap, cutting back and just exploding through there. And LSU defenders were getting blocked. They were out of position. They blitzed themselves into an Alabama touchdown on one play. And I thought Alabama did a really good job of mixing things up for a bit. I thought this was obviously their most well-played game, judging by the score, but watching how they just constructed their offense, I thought they mixed it up really well. I thought they took advantage Jalen Milroe and didn't set him up in obvious running situations and try to see, okay, well, we tried to run Jalen Milroe, but it doesn't work, right? They put him in situations to where he could succeed in the run game, and it worked. One of my favorite plays that they ran was, and they did a lot of running back leads. They did a lead inside. They did lead zone, lead quarterback zone, where they actually he rode the ball to the tailback and pulled it and just got in there behind him and followed him. And so it was kind of like a option-esque run, but it was really just a quarterback keep all the way. And what I really loved, they ran this play. I can't remember what it was set on the clock when they ran this play. I was enamored with it though. But they got into a 20 personnel split backfield look in the gun behind flanking Jalen Milroe. They sent one of the backs in motion, and it was a RPO, and it was a draw. It was like a draw trap. It was like a draw lead trap RP with a flare RPO, and it was so beautifully designed that they kind of influenced a little bit. They pulled the guard to trap the in man on the line of scrimmage, so it was a long trap. They pulled and trapped the in man on the line of scrimmage. The back that was in. It was kind of like a token fake, I guess. The back did most of the faking, but he led up through the hole, and Jalen Milroe just ran, I don't know how many yards, but he wasn't touched. It was a lot. It was a long way, and he wasn't touched at all. And it was a beautifully designed play. LSU was completely caught off guard. They took the cheese on the running back, and that's exactly what they wanted him to do. And so I thought that was brilliant. And I think, Vandy obviously has those things in their arsenal where it's the RPO with the quarterback draw. They have lead plays where they had a G scheme where they pulled the same side guard and led up with the running back as they put the wide formation into the boundary, and they had a lot of space there with a nub tight end. They just ran it right down their throat. And so I think that gives them an advantage because, they get that extra blocker, and it just seems like LSU doesn't really know what to do with that. And they sit there and they go and they go and they go, and they had no answers for Jalen Milroe's run game. And I thought that's what Alabama should have been doing all year long. And that's kind of why Vandy's been successful, is because they recognize, hey, this Pavia guy can run. First of all, Cedric Alexander and AJ Newberry, they can run. Junior Sherrill is pretty good on the jet sweep. And this opens up a lot of possibilities if we can get that going. And they've been able to with the option, the design quarterback run game, and even the basic run game has been strong because of all those other things. And I think with LSU, you mix it up, give them a few looks, give them some motions, pre-snap movements and things like that. You get yourself into situations to where now you're successful in the running game. Pavia's having a huge day. Alexander's having a huge day, and probably Newberry as well. You're probably going to be able to support three really strong runners in this attack. And for Vandy, one of the keys, it's always a key. It's a permanent key. It's control the clock. And you're able to do that if you can get some solid run lanes and by moving people around and getting guys at the point of attack, leading, doing some of this 20 personnel lead draw stuff. I guarantee they're going to be watching the film on that. Is going to set them up for success. And I think it's going to be disappointing for a lot of LSU fans when they realize that, hey, Vandy can run the football and LSU ain't too great at stopping the run. So this is going to be an interesting game if Vandy can do those kind of things. If this offensive lineman can get up to the second level and cut off these linebackers, if they can create that horizontal space that they've done a good job of creating all season long, I think that gives them an opportunity to really hit some big plays in the run game, especially the quarterback run game. And I love that Coach Beck, Coach Kill, if you're listening to this, look in that Alabama game, the lead quarterback trap with the RPO off of it and 20 personnel. Please do that. That's an amazing play. I might add that to my arsenal actually, with the Nashville running hot offense. So that's going to be a big key. And I think that's going to be a huge line of success for Vandy, but it can't be the only thing, right? They've got to have some other things off of that. And I think they will. I think they'll be able to hit some things off of that. They just got to take advantage of those things, because when they present themselves, they're not going to present themselves very often. I'll tell you more about it next. All right, Roy. That's right. Listen up, Vandy fans. Hey, you need to download the Roy app. You've heard us talk about Roy this season and how they're revolutionizing the NIL industry. Roy allows you, the fan, to have a say in who gets the NIL money. And here's what I absolutely love about Roy. You get your money back if the player transfers. Roy is helping us keep our team intact, and it's actually good for the game long term, right? So Diego Pavia's had plenty of these monster performances. Corday Sidnor, who's going to be our Roy player. There's been a ton of massive performance. Miles Capers, all the winners. Brock Taylor had a massive performance. He's had massive performance since that Missouri game. But there's all kind of things. But you can show your support for Corday Sidnor by depositing a little appreciation into that player's account. To do that, download the Roy app, and you can see what the logo looks like if you're watching on YouTube. It's right here. Or go to joinroy.com. Now let's spotlight the Roy Locked On Player of the Week. That's Corday Sidnor. Now, he's had key moments in every game. He's been a force in the pass rush. He was one of the guys that were trying to get to Lenora Sellers. Vandy was on a bye week this past week, but I felt like I needed to highlight somebody who's had collectively a really good season. So why not give it to Corday Sidnor on the bye week? He's been the emotional leader for this team. He's been great, and so he deserves a little bit of it. So shout out to him, and we're going to throw some money into his account on Roy. Every contribution counts. 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, it all adds up. It's going to help your favorite player stay put. So join me to show some love for Corday Sidnor. And you can do that by downloading the Roy app or go to joinroy.com today. Use promo code LOCKEDON. Every athlete from every team is there. So no purchase necessary, void or prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for full terms. Roy, support the players, change the game. All right. You ever had a frustrating ticket buying experience? Well, it's not frustrating if you use GameTime, right? They have this new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, right? So the curation makes it freaking easy, man, if you're going to save more on sports or comedy or theater or whatever you're going to see. And they have the all-in pricing, man. It's no surprise fees at checkout. Who wouldn't want that? But you have to toggle that feature on. I got to remind you of that. All right, seat views, you can get a panoramic view of the seat from your seat before you buy. Right. So you can, if you're going to, I always use Yankee Stadium as an example because they actually have obstructed view seats. So if you find yourself, if you use GameTime and you get an obstructed view seat from Yankee Stadium, that's on you because they have that seat view that you can have that you can see in the app. So there's no surprises there. And they have the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime Picks. Download GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. Ooh. All right, welcome back, Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, please check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job there covering the best league in college football and probably the most exciting with all the drama that's going on at the top of this league. I think there's like a 12-team tie for who's going to get to go. I think they're just going to let everybody just duke it out. They're going to have an SEC tournament. It's going to be like, you know how these old school high school jamborees are? It's going to be like that. So listen as Chris Gordy talks about all of that. And also, if you need another listen, if you don't want to listen to SEC, if you want to be a more team-specific person, let's say your wife went to Ole Miss, well, you can listen to Locked On Ole Miss. Steve Willis does a phenomenal job there. He provides everything, man. He's the king of Ole Miss podcasting. If you want everything, all the Ole Miss coverage, he's the guy to go to. And if you Google it, he's definitely the guy to go to. I think 1.6 billion people listen to his show. I think he's he's big worldwide, man. He's huge in Antarctica, just so you know. But anyway, talking about Vandy right now, because this is your first listen. Those are your next listens, so I'll let them do their thing. All right, but talking about the run game, I think the quarterback run game especially is going to open up a lot of things for Vandy's offense, and I think they're going to have a lot of opportunity. And with that opportunity, you get some big plays out of that, right? Florida, they took advantage of their big plays. One of their touchdowns was a shot play that DJ Lagway put it. I don't think he could have walked over there and handed it to the guy any better than how he threw it. I mean, he threw it in the perfect spot and they scored. Like he was throwing dimes all day long, right? That's just kind of how their offense is built. Now, Vandy's offense is gonna boom, they're gonna bludgeon you, right? And they're gonna wear you down. Even if they're not scoring a whole lot of points in the first half, those things are gonna turn into points in the second half because you're so freaking worn out and you're so tired of tackling Pavia and Alexander and Newberry and Monty Jones and Chase Gillespie and Alexander and Newberry and Pavia, and then tackling Eli Stowers occasionally. Like you're going to get tired of tackling those guys, and you're going to have to devote bodies up there to go make those tackles. And when you start doing that, you start to cinch down, you start to tighten down, because that's how you stop Vandy, right? You tighten down, you constrict their space. Well, when you constrict their space, the times that Vandy's been successful has been the times that they were able to burn teams for constricting that space. Like Missouri, they constricted the space. All of a sudden, boom, they hit it over the top to Joseph McVay. His only catch of the season was a 65-yard touchdown, right? They, in the first game, Virginia Tech constricted space. They started to stop the run game. They started playing really well against Vandy's rushing attack, and all of a sudden, 31-yard dime to Quincy Skinner because they constricted the space, they took a shot, and they hit on it, right? So what did that do? It loosened both of those defenses. They hit some big plays on Alabama too. Like, you have to be able to take advantage of downfield passing when the opportunity presents itself. Now, when Vandy's able to control that to a certain degree, they can hit those plays, right? They've hit deep digs across the middle. They've hit some things in some big windows because those windows are created by players having to come down for the run game. And that's a huge advantage for them. Now, if teams are able to play you two high safeties and eight, like South Carolina, what they were able to do, this is why they were able to win. And South Carolina fans, you can jump back in to the show if you want. But here's how they were able to win. Vandy was tired. They couldn't handle that talent. So some of this didn't matter because Vandy just could not handle, even if they were fresh. South Carolina's talented enough to where, they make it tough to handle them, right? But South Carolina was able to constrict space with just 6 guys. They were able to eliminate that horizontal spacing with just the 6 guys. So they were able to devote their 5 into coverage, and Vandy really couldn't do a whole lot because they played a 6 and 5 type situation. Now, teams like Missouri and Alabama, they weren't able to stop them with 6, so they had to bring 6, 7, 8 down into the box. The next thing you know, holes open up vertically in the intermediate to deep zones, and Vandy was able to hit those plays. And luckily for Missouri, they were able to hit some deep plays of their own to Luther Burden, who's an absolute freak. So they were able to pull off that win in double overtime. So if Vandy can do that, I think they have as good of a shot as anybody at really pulling off this upset. So they have to do that. They have to create those shot plays for themselves, and they have to hit on them. Because if they keep missing them, they only have a few where they can miss before LSU doesn't believe that they're going to be able to hit those plays, and they just bluff and say, okay, I dare you. And that's when you're in trouble as an offense. When a defense can do that, they can take away that vertical space with just 3 guys and say, I dare you to complete this pass, because you're not. And that's trouble too. So if LSU is able to do that, they should win this game going away. But I just don't think with their struggles against the run, I don't think they're going to be able to do that, because as they do, I just think they're kind of all over the place, and they're just not in a really good spot mentally. So anyway, but switching over to defense, speaking of defense, I think for LSU too, like what could hurt them, like morale standpoint, like psychology standpoint, is, offense is, the defense is giving up these chunk plays, and Vandy's able to let's say best case scenario, Vandy's able to do what they do best: drain the clock, chew up yards, score points, right? Let's say they're able to do that. Well, the psychology of that now is you get an offense that feels like they have to press. And Garrett Nussmeier is not good when he's pressing. He makes a lot of mistakes. He gets careless with the ball. And what Clark Lea's defense does a phenomenal job of is forcing quarterbacks off their spot, getting pressure, creating stressful situations for the offense, making them make plays. And the offenses that burnt them have guys that can do that, right? South Carolina, for example, it's 7-0. They have Lenora Sellers dead to rights. And when I say dead to rights, that he is in the grasp of a defensive lineman. He spins out of it, completes a 55-yard pass, and flips the field, and South Carolina ends up scoring on that. And it's, that I think that also really kind of shifted the game now, because it put Vandy kind of permanently on its heels, and that was huge for South Carolina to be able to pull that off. And if you have a quarterback that can do that, that's also one of those things that really can benefit you. Now, LSU, in some situations, Garrett Nussmeier, he's flailing the ball all over the place. Somebody, knocks it out. They get it. They turn it over. Next thing you know, the offense has a short field, and they score just like that. Right? Bama did it. Florida did it, and I think A&M did it. I can't remember. I can't remember all the defensive series for A&M, but Nussmeier, he gets hurried. I think Vanderbilt is starting to do a good job at disguising coverages. They're getting more comfortable within Clark Lea's defense, which only means it's going to be an improvement. So this is something that, I think with LSU, they're going to have to figure out, okay, how do we block these multiple fronts? How do we diagnose these pressures, and how do we keep Nussmeier protected in the pocket where he moves best, right? And LSU, I'll give them credit. They do a good job of moving the ball. Kyron Lacey and that receiving core is really, really good, right? They have some really good pieces there. They have some good, I feel like they're too talented to be kind of where they're at, honestly. I think they should be 1 loss, 2 loss maximum, and in a clear position to be in the college football playoff and win the SEC. I think that's where they should be, given what their roster looks like, because Nussmeier is good enough to kind of patrol that and to kind of distribute the ball around. But they just haven't shown that. They just come up, they come up to here, and then they all of a sudden they nosedive, and they've really taken a nosedive the last 3 weeks. And their mindset right now, their mental capacity right now is just completely off. And so I think that by, stalling out drives as they get closer to the red zone or in the scoring zones, right? Getting those turnovers where you're careless with the ball, penalties, just stupid things that, you as soon as you get Brian Kelly red-faced over there, it's over, man. Like I just feel like this team self-destructs because they just can't. They too much emotional interference, as Kurt Page would say, and they can't get out of their own way sometimes, and that's kind of what plagues them ultimately, because they're way too talented to be in this position. They just are. That's not what this team should be doing. But anyway, I'll tell you what they should be doing is recruiting like Clark Lee. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but I'm kind of serious. He's crushing it. I'll tell you why. But first, a word from Mint Mobile. That's right. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with a purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on their bluff. Turns out it really is that easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider, whoever that is, right? So to get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege, and you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number with you with all your existing contacts. So that whole new number, who's this? That doesn't exist here. And you can find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. A $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on a first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All righty, welcome back. We're wrapping up the show just like every morning. You should be wrapping up with a bagel. From Ceval Bagels. They're the best in sourdough bagels. They got it all, man. It's so good. Ben is such an amazing owner. He's opening a second location in East Nashville. So if you are a Nashvilleian or you plan on coming to Nashville and you want to get your morning started off right, go to Ceval Bagel. I'm telling you, my body would fill up the screen if I lived closer to Ceval Bagel because I would be there all the time. So make sure you hop on and go to Ceval Bagel. All right. So we're wrapping up the show here. Thanks for making us your first listen. Locked On Vandy again. We're talking about this matchup with LSU. But in all of that, I want to go back to the bye week for a little bit. You're starting to see some news that you don't really ever see with Vanderbilt. And what is that? I say it is recruiting news. Okay. Now Shivers is going to Florida, which is kind of disappointing, but you had those 2 commitments I talked about yesterday. The safety Davin Chandler and Austin Howard, who recommitted, they flipped right now. You're starting to see some guys sprout up and okay, there's some buzz now where you wouldn't see this buzz a year ago. Right? It took a lot longer to get this buzz. It took a lot longer to build this class. But Jakarian Keenan, he's also a defensive back. I think there's a reason why these defensive backs are coming in. He is coming down to Vandy and Virginia Tech. So that could be interesting. But, we'll get into all the specific players probably later. But I want to know, and I'll tell you real briefly, and I'm going to ask Kurt this if I have him on this week. I plan to. Is why is this happening? What is this recruiting impact? Why is it happening? Right? Why now versus later? Well, I'll tell you. These recruits are seeing, and I'll give you the simple. I'll give you the simple answer because I don't have a ton of time. But these recruits are seeing. They're seeing what this defense is doing. They're seeing how people are playing. They're seeing, these offensive guys, and I think there should be more linemen on the hook. But I don't know if I don't know what the strategy is there, but they're seeing, they're identifying targets a lot faster with the bigger recruiting department. So that's been good. But also these guys, there's eyeballs on the program now. The social media game is a lot better. People are starting to see, okay, this Clark Lee defense is actually for real. These guys are getting after it. These DBs are making plays, and these corners and safeties and guys that would be going to these ACC schools and, some of these Big 12 schools or whatever. They're starting to see it and going, oh, okay, I can go play high level defense in the SEC, get good film. And now you're starting to see those guys kind of be more interested. Now, these receivers also, they see a need. They see that they're trying to take some shot plays. They're seeing that they're trying to throw the ball downfield a little bit more. And when when you start to see Diego Pavia, if he's back next year or whatever they're going to do at quarterback, like you're going to see an uptick in the passing game, because I think that's an area that they're going to try to perfect now that they got the base level of the system down. So these receivers see that and they're like, well, there's nobody really there making an impact. Well, okay, I can make an impact there and be in the SEC, right? They're seeing all of this. And that's kind of why I think you're seeing some of this recruiting stuff. And, I honestly, I haven't followed Vanderbilt recruiting over the last 10 years, but I can only imagine that this is probably the most successful it's been at this point in the season in the last 10 years, right? It wasn't until close to early signing day when Clark Lee had already determined that he was making some changes that some recruits jumped on board. And then the February signing period, I think, had a few more that jumped on board. But I think you're seeing a lot more that are on board earlier. And I think you're starting to see guys like become more interested. And so these next 2 weeks of the season and up until the December signing period, I think is going to be really interesting to kind of see what kind of pushes that they make. I would love to see them be in the mix for some more offensive linemen. That's the goal. But you can only hope. But anyway, hope to have Kurt Page on very, very soon. And we will get it going, man. And that's going to do it for us here. Locked On Vandy. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, do whatever it is you need to do to get on board with the fastest. This is just like the city of Nashville. We're going to be the fastest. This is going to be the fastest growing podcast on the Locked On Network, and that's going to equate to Nashville being the fastest growing city in the United States. See the correlation there. Let's make it happen. We'll see you back here next time. Peace. Anchor down.